Week 2 of the Wednesday Night War saw another AEW ratings win over NXT, but I would say it's hardly a reason to celebrate since both shows were down. NXT fell from 891,000 viewers the week before to 790,000, so about 100K tuned out. But AEW, even with a simulcast airing on TNT and True TV, because they were concerned one of the playoff baseball games might run long, and the other would need to start on TNT, which ended up not happening, but they aired the show anyway on True TV. So you had the show running simultaneously on two different networks. Even with that second airing, combined, Dynamite dropped almost 20% in its second week. Now that baseball game on the other channel did over 5 million viewers, but that is still a sizable drop. They were still over 1 million, which is good. They ended up with about 1.1 million, but they did not crack the top 25 for cable that night. I said they would drop in week 2, and I got some guff for it, but again, people don't like, dealing in reality sometimes. I figured they were going to drop in week 2. People thought, well, after that Hell in a Cell finish, if anything, they might grow. That's not how these things work. There is overlap between the two audiences, but that first week also showed that there was a whole pool of teenagers who just were not watching wrestling, who wanted to sample AEW and check them out. And a lot of those teenagers tuned out in week 2, regardless of what may or may not have happened on the WWE pay-per-view. I know and people aren't going to want to hear this, but I know it feels like wrestling is really hot right now because there's just so much of it. But wrestling is not hot right now. Wrestling is not cool to the masses. And it's going to be very difficult for AEW or anyone else to come close to what a show like Monday Night Raw does every single week, just because that audience for Raw, it's almost baked in at this point. When they have a big show, Raw will spike every now and then like it did for the season premiere a few weeks ago. When they have a big show or a Raw reunion type show, Raw will spike to 2.5 million viewers, maybe 2.6, 2.7, maybe even 2.8. And that's probably their ceiling at this point. On an average week, Raw is going to do 2.2, 2.3 million. That audience is baked in, almost out of habit at this point. It's going to be very hard for anyone else, let alone someone new, to just come in and top those numbers. And those numbers aren't even that great. I mean, let's take a look at the big picture here with WWE, with AEW. Ratings go up, ratings go down. You look at the landscape here and what all of these shows are doing, and even SmackDown this week, which still has a bigger audience than all of them, losing almost 1 million viewers from week 1 to week 2 on Fox. You look at the wrestling landscape in general and all these different shows, these are not good numbers. These are not good numbers. But if AEW can at least stay over 1 million viewers, and, this week was not, a good sign. If they can stay over 1 million, hopefully TNT is happy with that. And if TNT is happy, and if they can do well in the advertiser demos and all that, then that's great. Just like Fox, just like SmackDown. Well, I was just talking about this a little while ago. The logic applies both for WWE and for AEW. On the surface, it looks terrible that SmackDown lost almost 1 million viewers in 1 week. But they were tops on network television in 18 to 49, and nothing else even came close. That's a good thing. I can't spin the other number, but that's a good thing. And I think that's what AEW should hope for. But I think these people that have these images in their head of, AEW is going to just come out of the gate and they're going to be competing with Raw in terms of the ratings and the numbers. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. Certainly not anytime soon. I can't predict what'll be 6 months or a year from now. But I think people need to just accept the fact that for all of this talk about all of these wrestling shows and there's just so much of it. Wrestling is so hot right now. It really isn't. I mean, to a very, very niche audience, it might be. But you can't just appeal to that one little niche audience. You want to create a whole new audience. Like all those young people that tuned in a week ago to see, hey, what's this Dynamite thing? you want to try to grab some of those people and broaden your base. Or at least that's what you should want to do. If I had a show, that's what I would want to do. I wouldn't just want to cater to this little group of people. I'd want to expand that out and bring more people into the tent. And it's not going to be it's not impossible, but it's not going to be an easy thing. I think people need to just dial it back and understand that. Private Party got a shock win on this show over the Young Bucks in the tag team title tournament. Excellent match. This was a coming out party in a lot of ways for Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn. Chris Jericho. And again, all of this stuff is covered in the Dynamite review that went up. I did a live stream, as I do every Wednesday after 10 p.m. when the show goes off the air. You can come over to YouTube, and we talk about Dynamite live. I take some of your phone calls, so that's up on the channel. But just to go through some of the key things here, Chris Jericho came out to do a promo, and what a promo it was. This was one of the best wrestling promos you'll see all year, although the NWA show from Tuesday, I think, gave them a run for their money, and I'm going to talk about NWA Power here in just a little bit. But I thought this was a great promo from Chris Jericho, who just went out there and just did what he does best. He was talking, off the cuff, didn't come off as scripted or hokey or anything like that. He was out there to reveal the name of his new group. It is him. It's Jake Hager. He calls him Hagar. But I kind of look at that as it's like William Regal calling Umaga Umanga. And Regal has said the reason he did that was because he knew it would stand out more. Because Regal is a smart person. I know, it's a big surprise to learn about that. But when I saw him tweet that out one day, this was months ago, he says, the reason I said it Umanga is because I knew it would stand out more and it would make people remember it. You know what? He was right, because there are still people who remember Umanga to this very day. Maybe that's why he called him Hagar, I don't know, but it's Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, Ortiz, and Santana, and they are now called the Inner Circle. And I will not be able to hear that name and not think of the theme song to the TV show Cops. Apparently, once Inner Circle t-shirts were announced as being available on the TV show, I think it was Jericho or Excalibur, somebody made mention of it. Apparently, the website crashed. So that's a good sign. It's got to suck, though, having to split that money 5 ways when you're part of a big group like that. I always think to like the NWO. And WCW was a shit show when it came to that kind of thing. The horror stories about people looking at merch receipts. Chris Jericho would look at like a merch receipt and it would register. It was maybe his shirt or his action figure, but it registered for Hulk Hogan. Hogan was getting all the merch money. Like, there's a lot of stories like that. But I wonder, at a big group like the NWO, as bloated as it got, I'm sure Hogan is getting a bigger cut than all of them. And probably Nash and Hall too. But what is like Scott Norton making off NWO merch back then, right? What's Buff Bagwell making off of NWO merch? I wonder how they worked that out. They probably just gave all the money to Hogan, Hall, and Nash for all I know. Although Scott Steiner probably would have wanted to, work in on that too. I don't think they would have screwed him over. But when you have a big group like that, I would imagine you're not making quite as much. Darby Allin beat Jimmy Havoc to win the right to challenge Chris Jericho for the AEW title this Wednesday. And so again, you want the full review from last week's show. It's up on YouTube. This week's Dynamite is a loaded show. They're going to be live in Philadelphia. We've got 2 tag team tournament matches. The Best Friends, Beretta and Chucky T taking on SCU. Lucha Bros battle the Jurassic Express. This is the match I'm looking forward to, maybe the most, on the show coming up on Wednesday. I'm still sticking with the Jurassic Express to go all the way. They're my pick to win it all. Riho defends her AEW Women's Championship against Britt Baker. Kenny Omega teams with Hangman Page to take on Jon Moxley and Pac. And Chris Jericho defends the AEW Championship against Darby Allin. So that is a full card that we already have days in advance. Cody also on his Twitter announced that Taz is being brought into Philly on Wednesday to be a guest commentator for the AEW Dark tapings. That's for the Dark matches that are going to be going up on their YouTube channel the following Tuesday, so that would be October 22nd. It's Philly. Taz has a history there, so it seems to me like this is just a one-shot. I guess if things go well, maybe they'll be open to using him for other things. Maybe they want to build their own announce team for the AEW Dark matches. Maybe they don't want to just use Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Excalibur for that. And maybe they build out their own announced team to call those matches going forward. I don't know, but right now, I'm looking at this as being a one-shot deal. Over on NXT, flip the channel here, Lio Rush and Drew Gulak had a hell of an opener, with Lio getting his first taste of gold in WWE, winning what has now been rechristened, officially rebranded as the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. And if I may, a moment of reflection for the reign of Drew Gulak, who was very underappreciated, I think, as the Cruiserweight Champion. He was to that title in many ways. I would draw the comparison. He was to the Cruiserweight title in WWE what Dean Malenko was to the Cruiserweight title and the division in WCW. Not the flashiest guy, maybe not even the greatest promo guy or anything like that, but he had a certain style about him when he was in the ring, and you respected him. And so that's the comparison that I would draw between the two, and that's meant to be a total compliment, by the way. One thing that bugs me, Lio, and it's, again, just a minor thing. Lio does this new move where he bounces off the bottom rope with his ass. And he bounces back up right into a cutter or a stunner on his opponent. And a few months ago, he asked people for suggestions on a name. I need a name for the move. What should I call it? This was several weeks ago. And Mauro Ranallo, because Mauro Ranallo on this show, he called it the Come Up. And I think that may have been the name that Mauro himself suggested on Twitter. You should call it the Come Up. My suggestion was Bottoms Up. Now, I know I'm partial, since it was my idea. I really genuinely like the name that I came up with better than the one that they went with. And it just irks me. It just irks me. Because Mauro Ranallo came up with it. So, of course, Mauro's going to call it that on the frickin' TV show. And they decided to go with that. But I happen to think that Bottoms Up would have been whatever. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. But Mauro, you're on my list. Not happy about this. But Lio was awesome here in this match. He's a very special performer. Like Ricochet. Ricochet can do things in the ring that not very many other people can do. Lio Rush can do things in the ring that not very many other people, if anybody, can do. Now that I actually said the two names together, that's a match I'd like to see in WWE. Ricochet against Lio Rush. Put them on a takeover special. Give them 15 minutes. Let them go at it, in the opener on a takeover special. You don't think they'd tear the house down? Be like a video game, come to life. I mean, I know a lot of people hate that style. They would absolutely hate that match. I think it would be just an awesome spectacle to see. I think they may have wrestled before. I want to say in PWG. I could be wrong about that, but I'm almost positive they have at least had one match before. Rhea Ripley, she straight up murdered Aaliyah. Rhea looked like a killer in there. I love this woman. She used an inverted Texas cloverleaf. She had Aaliyah hanging in the air, dangling in this hold. Gave her a giant swing with the hold still applied. And then planted her face first on the mat and cranked down on the hold until she tapped out. So she got on the mic. She is still looking for Shayna Baszler. I would pay to see that match. I'd pay to see a rematch between those two. First, though, she may have to get past Bianca Belair, who basically said as much after her win over Dakota Kai, which was a very strange decision, seeing as how Dakota just came back. She had one match on TV, and she lost to Bianca Belair on the show this week. And there's a natural story to build to. I guess she doesn't have to go undefeated or anything like that, but there's this natural story of redemption almost with her and Baszler. It just didn't feel right to beat her so quickly. But it looks like we're headed to Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Again, a match that I would pay to see. Women's division is strong in NXT right now. I have to say, you've got Rhea on the show. I would have to think we may be seeing Toni Storm pop up soon in NXT. You've got Bianca Belair. You've got Candice LeRae. You've got Dakota Kai, even though she lost here. She just came back, and there's a natural story there with her. Shayna, of course, is doing her thing as the champion. Tegan Nox just came back. Got a lot of talent in that female division right now. And how can I forget Io Shirai? See, there's so many great names they have down there. I almost forgot to mention Io, and she may be the best of the bunch. So they got a great thing going right now with that women's division, which is cool to see because there was a period of time when Asuka left, and I think there was another name who may have been called up as well, and that division looked like it was dying a death, and it was for a while. It was dying a death. It was dying on the vine, and they have done a very good job now of kind of replenishing what they lost. And now you look, and I would even argue that the women's division in NXT is stronger than what we've seen on Raw or SmackDown. Because once you get past the horsewomen, who's left? Natty? Lacey Evans? I mean, Asuka and Kairi now are the women's tag team champions. I don't see them doing very many singles matches. I mean, they got Sasha Banks back, which is great. But again, once you get beyond those 4 horsewomen, how strong really is that division? How strong is that women's division on the main shows? I would argue NXT is a lot stronger. Roderick Strong, speaking of strong, he and Isaiah Swerve Scott had a good match. Non-title match. Roddy wins off the distraction from his Undisputed Era buddies at ringside. It was a great showing for Isaiah Scott. Velveteen Dream appears. He's getting a rematch in 2 weeks for the North American title. He put up a photo of Roddy posing naked with the North American title covering his crotch. Basically copying the old Shawn Michaels Playgirl photo shoot from '96 when he was the WWF champion. Then Dream makes a crack about, basically he was inferring that Roddy has a tiny dick, and he showed a photoshopped version of the image that I really wish I had not seen. Tommaso Ciampa then comes out with a crutch. He grabs a steel chair at ringside, climbs into the ring. Cole and company, they bail. He mentioned Goldie on the microphone before, Adam Cole had the title on his shoulders. So he mentioned Goldie, and Ciampa said, "Daddy's home." And so begins the climb back to the NXT title for Tommaso Ciampa. He faces Angel Garza on NXT this Wednesday. Where Finn Balor fits into all this is unclear. My sense is he'll get a title shot probably before Ciampa does, and with Ciampa they may take their time. But I don't know. You would have to think that Balor came back. He basically came back to go after Adam Cole. He went face to face with Adam Cole, said, "I'm back in NXT." Maybe it'll be the opposite. Maybe Balor is the one who's going to have to work his way back into the title picture, and maybe he'll be getting an NXT championship match at WrestleMania weekend. But there's 2 viable contenders now for that NXT title to go after Adam Cole. We have Walter and Kushida, an excellent main event. This obviously got over very well at Full Sail. They ate it up. Walter is great. Kushida is very good as well. I mean, what more can I say? This was a very enjoyable match. Somewhere in here, I think Kushida got hurt. He suffered a wrist injury. He posted a photo on Twitter or Instagram, I think it was Instagram, of his hand and his wrist all swollen. So I don't know if something is broken. I don't know if it's something like Cole is wrestling with a cast on his arm that he can still wrestle. He'll have to wear a cast or something. I don't know. I don't know how serious it is. Hopefully not too serious. But this was great. Walter wins in the end.